When you're driving alone at night, it's easy to feel secure. You have the radio on, the heater running, and you're moving fast. But physically, there's only a thin sheet of glass separating you from the absolute dark outside. In our daily lives, society conditions us to be helpful. If someone trips on the sidewalk, we stop. If someone asks for directions, we answer. But when you apply that exact same empathetic conditioning to an isolated environment, the rules of engagement shift. Law enforcement and survival experts recognize a specific predatory tactic that weaponizes this instinct. It's known as the Good Samaritan trap. Predators calculate that an outright ambush carries a high risk of failure and physical effort. By staging a scenario of fake distress, they wait for a solitary driver to leave their locked vehicle and move into a vulnerable position. At 2 a.m. on an isolated road, the primary threat is the person who has engineered a reason for you to stop your car. A driver in a heavily wooded town was cruising at midnight when a loud scream echoed from the trees. A woman was crying for help. He slammed on the brakes, grabbed a defensive baton from his back seat, and called out. When she called back pleading for assistance, he left the safety of his vehicle and ran into the dark woods, swiping away branches to follow the sound of her voice. But as he ran deeper into the tree line, he noticed a critical anomaly. He was sprinting at full speed towards the screams, yet the volume of the woman's cries never got louder, and the distance between them never closed. This diagram maps the tactical reality of the auditory illusion. The pulsing dot shows the sound source, mirroring the victim's exact pace. This parallel movement proves the screamer was highly mobile, actively retreating to pull the target into an ambush. The driver stopped in his tracks, realized the trap, and bolted back to his car. A week later, a hiker found a woman's body in that exact area. Survival hinged entirely on recognizing a spatial impossibility and overriding the instinct to help. In another scenario, a driver found himself stranded at 1 a.m. on a pitch-black, snowy road in Vermont. His truck's engine was overheating, and he was stuck in a complete cell phone dead zone. After waiting in the dark, a passing local in a Toyota finally pulled over. The local rolled down his window and handed over his own cell phone so the stranded driver could call a tow truck. Right before handing the phone over, the local asked a single, highly specific question: "Are you all alone?" In threat analysis, this is a target vulnerability assessment, a probe to confirm no witnesses or guardians are nearby. The local watched the driver intently through both phone calls, took his phone back, and drove off into the snow. 20 minutes later, someone violently banged on the passenger side window. A man inside a massive black coat with the hood pulled tight was frantically pounding on the glass, begging to be let in. The driver threw his vehicle into gear and sped off. As he crested the next hill, his headlights caught the same Toyota from earlier, parked empty. Footprints in the fresh snow led straight back to his truck, proving the local had returned in disguise. The driver knowingly destroyed his engine to escape, but he survived because he relied on the physical barrier of his locked doors. He prioritized his physical safety over the social pressure to be polite. In some cases, the danger isn't an active hunt, but a territorial intersection. A teenage couple learned this while pulling over on a rural dirt road. They were met with an indescribable smell, the sound of snapping twigs, and sudden screams in the dark. Paralyzed by the noise, the driver snapped a blind photo with his phone's flash. The brief burst of light illuminated a man in a striped shirt, standing completely motionless in the pitch black, holding a blue tarp. The couple immediately scrambled back into their car and fled. The context for what they saw arrived later. That specific property was later raided, busted as an organized crime hub, housing drug trafficking and illegal cockfighting rings. This diagram illustrates a concept known as territorial overlap. The circle on the left shows normal civilian transit routes. The right shows isolated illicit operations. That red pulsing intersection is where a routine stop crosses paths with a hidden criminal operation. By stopping for a bathroom break, the couple had inadvertently moved from a public transit route directly into the operational perimeter of a criminal enterprise. In each of these encounters, the victim's survival depended on the specific decision to override social conditioning. When you are isolated, defense requires strict boundaries. Keep the doors locked, refuse to roll down the windows, and ignore verbal pleas calling out from the shadows. It requires a mindset shift. If an interaction feels wrong, trust it. Your subconscious picks up on environmental threats much faster than your conscious brain can rationalize a polite response. Human empathy is vital for a functioning community, but in absolute isolation, it is a liability that predators know how to exploit. In these environments, your first priority must always be your own survival. When we pack our bags for a getaway, we are consciously deciding to drop our defenses. We leave our daily responsibilities behind, stepping into a completely new environment with the sole intention of letting our guard down. Take a look at this ocean of people at Coachella. The sheer scale and density mean you can easily lose your friends, which also means a predator can blend in perfectly. Whether it's the overwhelming chaos of a massive music festival, the crowded energy of a San Diego beach, or the isolated silence of a Palm Springs desert retreat, these environments all share a common vulnerability. It triggers a phenomenon known as situational blindness. Whether your brain is entirely overstimulated by sensory chaos or lulled to sleep by total silence, it physically struggles to process early warning signs. Your natural threat detection system gets muted. Predators rely heavily on this. They specifically hunt in these tourist zones because they know they can observe, track, and select targets who have their biological alarms temporarily switched off. The signs are usually there if you know what to look for. An older, scruffy man in dark clothes staring continuously across a neon festival crowd. A shadowy figure appearing in the background of your beach photos. Or unexplained heavy thumping sounds echoing against the side of a remote desert house in the middle of the night. Instead of reacting to these anomalies, the human brain steps in to protect the vacation. It actively gaslights you to preserve the peace, convincing you that confronting a terrifying reality is less desirable than simply ignoring it. So you make excuses. The festival goer assumes she is just feeling the paranoid side effects of taking Molly. The beachgoer pretends not to notice the man staring at her so she doesn't seem weak. The Palm Springs couple convinces themselves that the desert temperature shifts are just causing the house to settle. Ignoring these early warning signs and prioritizing comfort over instinct has a steep cost. It provides a predator the exact window they need to turn a creeping sense of unease into a physical threat. Once a stalker knows you aren't reacting, the pattern shifts. They move away from passive observation and begin actively testing your boundaries to geographically isolate you. At Coachella, the stalker utilized the packed crowd to his advantage. He pushed his way through thousands of dancing people to wedge himself next to the victim, waiting until she was separated from her friend to aggressively initiate contact. This exterior shows the exact type of perimeter a predator will probe. At the Palm Springs house, the stalker began deliberately triggering the exterior motion lights one by one, walking the dark corners of the fence line to map out the property's blind spots. In San Diego, the testing reached the glass. The victim woke up to find the strange man from the beach standing directly outside her bedroom window, waving at her through the dark. At this point, the psychological dread ends. The victims can no longer deny what is happening. The boundary has been crossed, forcing an immediate transition into survival mode. After sprinting up the stairs of the beach house, the San Diego stalker gripped the interior door handle of the bedroom. The victim watched the metal violently jerk back and forth as he threw his body weight against the wood, trying to snap the lock. In Palm Springs, the renter followed a set of footprints out to a pitch-black storage shed. Standing 3 feet away in the dead silence, he heard a terrifyingly calm, polite man's voice from inside the darkness ask, "Excuse me, could you open the door, please?" followed immediately by a quiet laugh. The Coachella stalker bypassed the exterior doors entirely. The victim woke up in a half-sleep state, her body completely drained, to find the towering, silent figure of the festival stalker standing fully inside her bedroom doorway, staring at her bed. Instinct finally takes the wheel. Doors are slammed shut, deadbolts are thrown, and frantic calls to 911 as the victims flee the properties into the night, desperate for the police to arrive. Fleeing an immediate physical threat brings a rush of temporary relief, but running away only pauses the nightmare, because the true horror of these encounters hasn't even been uncovered yet. When daylight breaks, the morning after psychology sets in. There is a desperate desire to attribute the night's terrifying events to bad drugs, vivid nightmares, or overactive imaginations. But the Coachella victim couldn't blame her MDMA trip. Staring back at her from the hardwood floor were muddy boot prints. They tracked straight from the front door, down the hall, and stopped exactly where the towering figure had stood in her doorway. The post-incident discoveries in San Diego revealed a calculated motive. The stalker had successfully stolen the victim's swimsuits, and far worse, managed to plant a hidden recording camera directly inside the bedroom. This dry desert environment easily preserves an impression. Police found footprints leading to the shed, proving someone paced the property. But the final piece of evidence shattered the couple. During a sweep, an officer pulled a stranger's dirty baseball hat from deep behind the couch. The evidence reveals a terrifying commonality. These predators successfully breached the interior sanctuaries of each home, standing undetected while the victims were sleeping. In an unfamiliar environment, a sudden wave of paranoia is a biological alarm system, an evolved response to the reality that someone is already watching.